for real this time.
Thursday morning technical difficulties. But here we are.
Welcome back.
You know what?
What's up?
After reading a news article, I don't feel so bad.
Exactly.
Because our technical difficulties delayed our show 3 minutes. Nobody's life was at risk.
Exactly. This is true. There were some technical difficulties that took place about a month ago that did put some lives in risk.
Yes.
And there was a report that came out about that last night.
Report, right?
Preliminary report, yes.
Finally giving us the insights. According to CBS News, looks like it might have been a local problem.
It sounds kind of like it. Looking at the report here, it's only 7 pages long. It's pretty minimal, but it sounds like there was a mishap in the Minot air traffic. And this is for anyone by chance not aware. The B52 bomber situation in the flyover of the North Dakota State Fair back, I think it was the first night of the fair. And you have a plane that a B-52 that almost collided with a commercial airline. And looking at it now in the preliminary report, kind of sounds like that the local air traffic control was getting a little mixed up between the call signs and had some mishaps in that regard and told them to turn right when that would have been at the point where the B-52 was right to his right. And
So according to CBS News, the pilot said that he didn't really want to turn right because there's a B-52 there.
Yeah.
That would be a bad deal.
Be a little less than ideal to have a collision with, and obviously it was all averted. But I think another big thing from it, there was a second plane involved.
There was a
third plane. Frankly,
3 plane totals. A small one that on the way out, the B-52 almost nailed. So after the flyover, but the Air Force is claiming that they weren't even aware of the commercial jet that was coming into land. So I know it sounds crazy, and you trust that everybody's telling the truth. But that's what I guess the investigators are going to find out.
This is true. And all I can say on that is I'm not doubting it one way or the other, but it is not hard to find out when planes land in Minot, North Dakota. Commercial planes land in Minot.
But we're talking about minutes.
Yeah, that's true. And frankly, in this case, seconds.
Yeah.
Like miles happen in a matter of 10 seconds in this situation.
Right. And if it's going to be 5 minutes later, then the flyover is going to be fine, and then the plane's going to be able to come in to land.
Nothing happens, period, at that point.
So you're not just looking at, they get in at 6:45, so we can't do a flyover till 7:30.
Yeah, you can't guarantee the exact timing of that. And again, with this stuff, as fast as they're moving, miles go by in seconds.
Yeah. The CBS News article is not very nice to local. I mean, it wasn't mean, but
once again, Minot in the national news.
It just pointed, Minot in the national news. It never goes well. It just pointed out that Minot Airport typically handles between 18 and 24 flights a day. At this moment, 3 planes were all arriving at the same time. It was a busy day.
Chicago O'Hare.
Chicago. They're having 18 to 24 flights land like every 3 minutes.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man. You go and you land at those big airports, and you get at the right time where you can see lights.
It's a stream.
It's amazing how many lights are in the air at one time.
No,
you just think you're all by yourself in the air, and it's not even the case.
No, it's the air highway.
Did you go to the fair at all, Ron?
Yes.
Good. See, we have a special guest. We didn't even introduce our guest. Our technical difficulties
so
sidetracked.
Yes,
We're joined by Ward County Commissioner, newly elected. Now, it's not that new anymore, but we did an interview about 10 months ago, and that was in anticipation of an election that was going to be happening in November timeframe. And so now we get to do this again. But this time you're actually part of the commission.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's good to have you back. And how's the first 10 months on the commission gone so far?
It went by really fast. It has. I'm not kidding. And there's a lot to learn. I'm still learning, but I'm finally know enough to get engaged and working on a bunch of different things, and it's been very fun.
That's good.
Me.
So it's been fun, and that kind of leads into the question I was going to ask. What's a highlight that you've had in the first 10 months, or less than that actually? But
we were able to get through the Ward County Planning Commission has been working on planning and zoning ordinances for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they were able to get through that and get something to the commission to have a public hearing and approve.
Gotcha.
So that was a big deal, a milestone. So I'd say that's one of the highlights.
Yeah. And then not every other Tuesday, but 2 Tuesdays a month, you get to go sit down. You look forward to those days?
I do.
That's good.
Yeah.
good.
And you know, it's surprising. These meetings last long.
Yeah, they do.
I mean,
You guys can have some marathons.
Yeah, sometimes we're still meeting at noon or 1 o'clock in the
man.
afternoon. So we take a break and get back at it again, and the time actually does go by really fast.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And looking at some of the past that you had too, you did a lot of time with the Minot Parks and Rec District. Yes. Has that helped kind of shape how you've started going the first 10 months here?
Absolutely, it has. Yeah. I'm very familiar with how local government works, and that has been a benefit.
That's good.
It has helped me to get up to speed, quickly, but the county is different than the other entities, and it's been interesting to see all of the involvement we have with different groups and nonprofits and things. Some of them I had no idea.
Sure.
And some of them I did know, but didn't know exactly what the relationship was.
Yeah. Finding out the extent of things that kind of come up that you hadn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. So.
And doing some digging on you today, I saw that you were inducted into the
This is a good one.
the North Dakota Recreation and Park Association Hall of Fame.
Yes.
That was a couple years ago now, so belated congratulations.
Well, thank you.
But what can you tell us a little bit about that? Just briefly before we get into the minutiae.
I got nominated by my peers to get into that, but it was kind of capped off my career. I was very proud of that.
No, that's fantastic.
Very cool. All right. Well, we want to dive into something that you guys have been discussing a little bit, I'm sure. Probably just a couple minutes been spent on this, but supposedly there's this budget that you guys been working on.
Yes. So we have spent multiple meetings and many hours. Some of those long meetings were budget meetings where we're getting presentations from the department heads. I don't know. I'm sure if I went back and looked, I'm sure we've spent 20 plus hours in meetings, just in actual public meetings working on our budget so far.
That's crazy. That's crazy. 20 some hours. And basically one of the biggest issues that you guys that has been at the center point of the discussion has been the 3% cap that's been imposed by state legislature. Obviously, this is something we're all aware of. This is nothing new. This is not groundbreaking, but it's been very interesting to see how this actually affects local municipalities. And so I'm somebody that we had very good discussions about Measure 4, and I leaned towards Measure 4. And then I think at the end I started telling off because of some little things about it, of how it be implemented, and it's going to be state law where the legislature can't really help it, which then they go and they do this, so whatever. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that I am for us being conservative with our money. But Measure 3
Measure 4.
Yeah, not Measure 4. This 3% cap is something that just riles me up because how the state is able to continue to spend and the local municipalities are affected. But that doesn't matter. That's not the discussion today. Today the discussion is how has this really shaped your guys' budget process? Your first year in, you're working through this. You've worked with budgets all your career, but now you get to work with one with this 3% cap, which lower than inflation, lower than your pay increases that are in line for employees and benefit increases. How has this really shaped the discussion for you guys?
Well, and I'll first preface this with all of these comments that I make are my personal opinion as I'm an elected official representing the people that voted for me.
Right.
All of our other commission members have their own opinions.
That's fair.
I'm not speaking for the commission on any
That's
of this.
fair.
I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah.
It has been very difficult. And I'm sure that was the intention of the legislation.
Yep.
That, people are not happy with property taxes going up every year as much as they have. So this is a way to put that under control. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
And personally in favor of that as well, being conservative with our funds as much as possible.
Right.
So that part I don't have a problem with. As we go through our budget process, I've done a lot of budgets in the past and looking at our county budget, I'm like, how is this possible when we start out, that we had a slight increase in the levy, the valuation. So the valuation went up a little bit. So values of homes and things affect that, but the valuation went up. How are we so short on funds that we're already behind? As we start our budget, we're already $800,000 in the hole.
Right. Yeah.
Just to meet the 3% cap. So we're talking about we already have a 3% increase built in. We have to cut over $800,000 out of our budget to get down to that increase. it took me a while.
That's crazy.
Just to wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
How is this even possible?
So
you go through all the calculations and look at the formulas and everything, and that's correct. We, we're down to about $500,000 now. After 20 hours of meetings, we've cut enough out that it feels like $500,000 now is doable.
Right.
It looks like that. All right, we can get this, but next year,
it's a whole different story.
We're going to do this all over again.
Yeah.
We need to make this is my personal opinion, but we need to make a substantial enough change in our budget this year. If we don't, we're going to be doing the same thing next year and every year.
Yep, absolutely.
To make this work.
So you're saying before, just out of the gate, when you're going and preparing this budget, not going and looking at a new service, not looking at a new nonprofit coming around saying, hey, we need to increase the amount that's given to us or et cetera.
Just to keep the status quo.
Just to keep the status quo of the previous budget, you were immediately $800,000 in the hole.
Yeah, and as you said, we talk about employees, salaries, health insurance, all of that goes up.
Right.
Just the standard increase we were starting with in the baseline budget was already almost $800,000. So that would eat up the entire 3% increase without looking at any cost, any inflationary costs of utilities and all the other things that go into the budget. So
however many service contracts you guys have that go into some of those projects.
So it's been a difficult discussion for all of us, and we can keep it conservative, but this year it's going to be more than normal, and we're going to end up cutting something either this year or next year that is going to affect people.
So
correctly.
Do you feel like, and obviously you haven't been here for 10 years, seen it grow and all that, but do you feel like government has grown in the local municipalities? Not local municipalities would be too broad, just from what you've seen at Ward County. Do you feel that it has grown substantially over the last 10, 15, whatever time frame it would be, years, that it's like, hey, we need to start shrinking the size? Because that's essentially what this 3% cap doing is. It's not maintaining status quo. It's saying you must shrink the size of government at the local level. Do you feel like that is a good thing for Ward County?
Maybe some other entities and across the state you can find examples of it, no problem.
Yep.
Where I think they've grown too fast.
Williston was millions in the hole, and
some of that, your city doubles in population size. Well, that growth is coming, automatic in those situations. So that's not something you can control necessarily. You need to grow your government grows along with the population. So, but when your population is not growing, you should stay relatively the same. Right. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Ward County over the last few years has done a very good job, the former commissions, of going through the budget and with a fine-tooth comb and finding anything that they thought was wasteful and either eliminating it or lowering it. So we're down to the point where we have about the projected budget right now that we're starting with was about $68 million to run the county government. Tax-wise, it's about a third of that is levied. Mm-hmm. The other money comes from other sources and revenues and things that come in. Yeah. We're in this situation, where they've cut it down to the point where we have about a $1.5 million reserve fund for emergencies or things that that you need, and we have an emergency fund too. I think there's $700,000 in that. Okay. That's our reserve fund that if something happens, like we have a snow emergency in the winter and you have, you have to hire extra people, all of that covers all of that. Or if we have a service go down or we lose revenue for some reason,
some emergency.
That's a pretty small reserve fund for that size of a budget, in our opinion.
One bad winter.
And we're honestly looking at maybe having to use a little bit of that to offset some of the cap situation this year to put some of our reserve fund back into the budget. You'd like to at least keep the reserve fund steady. Right. Mm-hmm. Over time, it maybe needs to be a little larger. We don't need it too large either. Mm-hmm. And we have reserves in our sales tax fund, but that's because the sales tax is being collected. Then it will be spent in the following year back into the budget again. Yeah, I see. So those shouldn't be counted in that calculation. So those are the things that we're having discussions about. if we use a little bit of our reserve fund for the budget next year, you can't sustain that. You can't keep doing that.
You can do it this year, but can you
Right.
do it next year kind of
So
thing?
that's the whole discussion that we're having. We're getting down to the point where we need to decide if we're going to. We've got a few things we can do to make that $500,000. That we can come up with that.
Right.
But next year we're going to be in the same situation again. So we've looked at some different areas that we could maybe talk about cutting.
Right. And so when you talk about cuts, what would be your main thing? And I know that you've mentioned it a couple of times at commission, and understanding that I don't think anybody on commission is like, all right, what can we cut? What can we get rid of?
No.
That's not the mentality that's being brought to the table. It's simply, if we're going to have to cut something in order to stay within this 3% cap, what is an option? And so what is the options that you kind of see as potential things that would be able to be cut?
Yeah, so in a couple of different meetings, we've had discussions about the jail in general and the juvenile detention service that we offer in our jail. And when you look at the numbers on that, it is very difficult to look at that and then compare it to other departments and things that go on and not say, wow, that costs us a lot of money for the amount of kids that are that are actually using this service. It's been brought up in a couple different meetings. The kids that end up in the juvenile detention from Ward County, in an entire year is around 50.
Okay.
There are other kids that use the facility as well that are getting shipped in from other counties, so it's more like a little bit of a regional center. So it's up over 130 or 140. It's somewhere in that range, and I might be off on that number, but the Ward County number stands out to me. Right, we're paying about $1.1 million to run that.
Okay.
In a year, and that's for 50 kids. That's a lot of money and a lot of staff and manpower for a small amount of kids.
Yep.
And if there wasn't a service anywhere else, then we don't have a choice. Our jail is more in that situation. We have to have a jail.
Yeah,
And
can't get rid of the county jail.
No.
Yeah.
But that part of it, the juvenile detention service that we offer, it's just detainment. Some of the kids need programs and treatment and things. If they end up having to do that, we have to send them elsewhere anyway. We're just holding them, and then they get sent somewhere else if they need extra whatever.
Yeah.
And we're providing basic services at the county level. We're not going to cut how many times we grade or plow. Those are basic things that we need to do. We need to keep maintaining our roadways and things. Well, the citizens voted a 50-cent sales tax to help us with that. So we're in good shape in that area.
Right.
We can plan that out, and that money comes in. We spend it. We maintain the roads. We've done bridge projects, and we're always looking to do cost shares with the state or feds on those projects too, so we can make the money go farther. But that stuff we don't want to mess with. Those are basic services. Now, juvenile detention, we're providing it at a regional level. Somehow we need to get more money from the other people that are using it. We do charge, but I think that brings in like $200,000 a year.
Gotcha.
It's not even close to
the $1.5 million total that it costs.
But what's crazy about the numbers are just over 50% of the people in there are from outside of Ward County, and over the 50% brings in $200,000. So under 25% of the cost. So that
and I apologize for not.
You don't.
Off
You're
the
fine.
top of my head, I'm not going to get all the dollars exactly.
Right. You're fine.
But it's
That's
in
why I
that
tried to
range,
go to
and
the
that's
percentages,
that stuff is on our public record on our meetings that we've had and been discussed publicly. So and I guess the gist of it is the only way that we're going to make a dent in our budget so that we can sustain our budget going forward is looking at one of the biggest costs we have is employees. And if you make a change there, that will have an effect long term on your budget to make it easier, which that's just reality, and that sucks. You can cut out a project, but that's a one-time thing. Or funds that you use for maintenance, you can cut those down. That helps a little bit, but
so
in order for us to not have to have this discussion every year,
Right.
and our employees are sitting in the chamber while we're having these discussions and wondering every
It's my
time
job.
we have our budget discussion, are we going to have jobs?
Are we going to
Yeah.
be the proposed
I
cuts?
don't want to have that discussion every year.
No, but the nature of the 3% is it forces that discussion every year. I think.
Yeah.
Because, and that's what's. This
Like-
is why I just don't like it, because if you cut out the way, and there is the rolling average or whatever, and so that will give you a benefit for a little bit, but eventually it's going to force the budgets to, like, pay increases are going to have to be below 3%.
Yeah.
Benefits are going to have to be cut back, and that's outside of the control a little bit, but they're going to just have to be cut back because
And that's another thing we're looking at, okay, the cutting back the salary increase to a smaller amount than
Right.
we projected. That will eat away at that $500,000 that we're looking at. Health insurance is also another thing that we had our provider come and do a presentation at our last meeting and talk about different options and, how can we save some money in that area. So
Right.
it's a combination of everything.
yeah. But if you cut out $1 million out of this budget, the next year you're going to have to get shave or keep it down to 3% again, and that $1 million isn't counted.
Right. No,
and so all of a sudden,
if you cut it back, you're still dealing with the same,
Repercussion every year.
those long-term issues are still lying there.
Right.
This
And
is why I hate the cap.
Yeah.
Your philosophy on we need to operate, we need to provide the services. People are tired of their taxes going up.
Yeah.
Well,
I hear that.
This is going to, have an effect on that. No
Right.
doubt about it. So it's having the intended effect, but maybe it's going farther than it should. I'm
Yep.
not happy with just automatic 3% increase either.
'Cause
I'd
that's
like
right.
to see that be, let's
Just a
do it
real-
2% or, but that
Yeah.
should be on us to come up with how we do that.
Exactly.
And maybe some years you can't, or you can in some areas, but not in others.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Because that's the thing with the cap. It guarantees that municipalities are going to raise their budget 3% every
Yeah,
year,
it-
effectively.
That was
Yeah.
my opinion, and it's playing out.
Yeah, I
before
think
this
the
happened,
majority.
I didn't like that. I'm like, it'd be nice if we could lower it somehow.
Yep.
I mean, make a change that lowers the taxes, but then going forward, you still have to deal with, the costs go up
Right.
over time, and if there is growth, then things are going to change along with that. So
You have to be-
need to still be able to provide the services people want.
Even if it was a staggered deal, because some people will disagree with me on this, but it feels like city budget, perhaps they could maintain status quo. Obviously, they're also on the property tax side, they could maintain status quo. But you have some of the budgets that are already tight, and it varies by county. There's no way you could have a staggered deal, but it feels like a county budget should be handled differently than a city budget versus even a school district budget versus a park district budget. Like every single one of those operate very differently.
And the cap forces parity onto all of them at that point.
And that may not be a fair thing. And then you also have the population sizes. Again, stuff that's outside.
I think Ward County did a great job, and the budget is so conservative that
Right.
it's having a bigger effect on the entity that did a great job keeping their budget low in the first place. It's having a greater effect than it would if it were
on those
higher.
places
Because
that
you
are
have stuff to
struggling.
cut.
Sad to say, but that is what it looks like.
But it shows, and we've had conversations not off the record, but not on the podcast with legislators, and they said, well, maybe we need to go, we'll find that we need to increase it to 5% or 6% or whatever. I think what it shows, though, is the people that have fat in the budget, 3% will begin to force that out because you're going to have to cut out some of those big projects. The problem is for the people that are already lean, it makes it impossible to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And you've already mentioned it, but we've talked about it as well. Ward County has done a great job of looking at the reserve levels and maybe even getting them too low, but making sure that, hey, we don't have a bunch of our citizens' money in
Excess
our
reserves,
pockets.
yeah.
We have tried to keep in every part of the game, we've tried to really focus and keep a lean budget. And then you get hit with the 3%. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back in about a minute 15.
Uh-oh.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned Operator Drone Services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations. Yes, pun intended.
Enjoy Minot's finest authentic Mexican cuisine with a view at Mi Mexico. The rooftop patio is open and ready for you to enjoy a margarita or other cool refreshment along with genuine mouth-watering Mexican entrees. Mi Mexico, South Broadway.
All right, we are back. A couple of comments. Minot should consider a legacy fund for the city if legally possible. Be an interesting idea.
It's an interesting concept, yeah.
Definitely. I think every municipality is going to have to look at alternative ways of generating revenue.
There's another point that I can mention if you'll
go ahead.
let
Please,
me.
for sure.
We are looking at ways to increase our revenue and being creative. We've got the fourth floor of the admin building that we're currently advertising right now with a realtor to lease out to businesses or government entities or whatever. It's
wide
fully
open.
finished. It's ready to go. During COVID, the Health and Human Services shrunk a little bit, and they have not expanded back into that floor. It was staffed before; it is not now. So we're trying to bring some revenue in. We can find a way to have a revenue stream. We've also got property up on North Hill that's for sale, the old County North building.
Sure.
That we're not using anymore. So we could put that in our reserve fund and maybe take some money out each year to help with this until we get to a sustainable point.
Right.
And we're looking at other properties that we own as well to see if there's anything else that we could move out and get back on the tax rolls again. And we're starting to think that way, which is a great feeling for a government entity to start thinking about. Let's find some other ways to, not in a bad way, but there's other ways that we can bring in revenue to offset the taxes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It brings a very interesting discussion there that I want to talk about. Another comment, did you know from 1800 to 1935, inflation was 0.02%. From 1935 to 2020, it was 96% inflation or purchasing power lost. Interesting things that statistics do there. All right, so jumping into this conversation about alternative revenues, do you feel that sales tax is a more effective way? I know that not while you were on there, but recently the Minot Parks went and we're looking at
a half-cent sales tax increase.
And then recently it was even proposed by the city. A city councilman proposed the city staff look into it. For the county side, is that something that you guys may have to look at down the line of going in? And when I say down the line, in the next 2 or 3 years,
I'd say everything is on the table right now. I'm not a great proponent of any kind of a tax increase, but sales tax is helpful. I mean, that takes the burden off the individual homeowners. You're paying it as you're participating in the economy by making purchases, and other people from other areas are also helping to pay. So that's a help to us.
Right. For sure.
So I'm happy that we have our half-cent sales tax in place to help us with roads and improvements and all of that. That is going to be a huge help to keep our budget down.
For sure. Yeah. Beyond that, you mentioned leasing property that you guys own, selling other. Obviously, you don't want the city that. And this was a great point that was actually made by Alderman Blessum early on when he's on council. He's like, we should not have the city going and buying property
as an investment
and
kind
then
of thing.
and then consider leasing it out till they need it, because we do not want the idea that city is competing with private.
Right.
And I'm sure you have a very similar view on that for the
I
county.
do, but here we sit with a vacant floor that's not
Which
being
is completely
used.
different.
We don't want to then hire a bunch of county employees to fill that up.
Exactly.
Let's let a private
Yeah.
entity use that and
Right.
make some revenue off of it. So that's more opportunistic.
Yeah.
We didn't do that on purpose.
Rather than create it just to
Correct.
do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to be clear, it's the top. You can't sell the top floor of your building. So then the other option is to hire employees to fill it, which would increase costs, or to lease it out because it's space.
We're not in the position to go there either. So.
Yeah. But you have a different property that you guys have that you guys are talking about selling.
Yeah. So, and the whole, our county engineer and the highway department were able to make a purchase a few years ago of a former oil company building
Okay.
that we if we would have to build that facility right now, I'm sure it would be close to 10 million or more.
Wow.
And I might be off on that, but
Yeah.
we bought it for less than 2 million.
Wow.
We're able to move the whole department in there. It was fully, I mean, no renovations involved or anything.
Yeah.
It was a substantial improvement. So, I mean, when our county does things like that, it makes me smile. It makes me proud.
Yeah.
They really saved a lot of money and made an improvement to that department. So
Right.
those are now the offshoot of that is now we have some things that they were using that we can now put back on the market and get back into the private sector.
The
again.
former building now, yeah.
And if we have other properties, we're going to look at it. Maybe we don't, but maybe we have some other land that we're holding that we don't need.
Yeah.
And maybe we can put that on the market as well. So
What-
we're trying to go in different directions here to try and look at a few other revenue streams.
That's the hand that's been forced at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for better or for worse, we're here.
Do you feel like there are other besides leasing, besides selling? Because selling is you get that one-time
It's a one-time,
transaction, and
yeah.
then over time it's going to feed back in. But are there other places that you guys have looked, like increase of service fees, charging more for maybe some of the regional duties that Ward County plays?
Charging
whatever
for some of the services like the juvenile detention, jail, those things where people are, it's a regional facility and it's getting used. We definitely are going to be looking at those fees.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to go down to, okay, we're going to just charge more for a plat application or things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's not, in me personally, it's speaking, I'm not in
Right.
favor of that kind of thing. But those kind of things I am in favor of because other counties are using them at a lot less expense than if they had to build their own. And
Right.
we should get a fair compensation for that.
And
That's fair.
And to be fair,
Our taxpayers shouldn't have to be,
Forced
paying as
into
much
every-
as they are for those facilities that are getting used by other counties.
right?
Sure.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Have you been in contact with any of the state representatives about the situation yet? Have you talked to any of the state reps over?
yeah.
Okay. have they been reaching out to you, or did you reach out to
No,
them?
you
Is
just,
it,
I mean,
it just
we're
happens.
just
in
a
this-
small.
yeah,
we
this is
know
true.
everybody and
This
see
is true.
everybody
Yeah.
and meet, wherever you go. So of course it comes up.
I think the biggest deal with that, though, and this is the part that we've been trying to understand, because I'll tell you from my point of view, I don't know about Kyler's point of view, but I know that we're in the same ballpark on this, is that it just feels like the state went, imposes, said, deal with it, and we'll see if it works or not. Like, it's literally how it feels, especially with the conversations where they talk about increasing, which makes no sense to me. It's necessary, but it makes no sense from the point of view of we're going to go into a very low cap, and then we'll talk about increasing it, rather than going the other way. Hey, a 6% cap. If it's too high, we're going to bring it down. Have you, with those conversations that you're having with state representatives that might be off the cuff conversations where they're not planned, they're not official, is there sympathy that's being given towards the 3% cap, or has it been kind of like deal with it?
A little of both, and some sympathy for there's some levies that were not included or that were included that maybe shouldn't have been. When you're doing the cap calculation, and it's like a 2-page spreadsheet to do the calculation to come up with the cap number, and
Goodness.
some of the levies are not included in that, and some are. So. And some of the things like our library is not included in that, in the cap calculation, because it's only levied on county residents, but not the city of Minot residents aren't levied that on our county library. So that's not included in the cap. So that is, if we were to close the library tomorrow, it wouldn't affect our cap at all. And I'm not proposing that, but I mean, there's some areas that the money gets
That's
spent
fair.
there. The levy is not capped. You can go up a normal amount if you want to, and it's still, at the end of the day, you look at our budget, and we're talking about the dollars, not the mills, but the budget went up again, and some of the levies aren't affected and some are. So.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
And there's an interesting offshoot of that too, something that's been discussed in the past, and it's never gone anywhere in the past. And I know it was, I think, brought up even this year again at Minot City Council, the just potential conversation of merging the Minot Public and Ward County Library. Is that something that could be looked at again with this coming to fruition, or is that maybe
absolutely
something?
it could be looked at, and timing with us and the city building a relationship. They've had their hands full with things going on and the elections and all kinds of things. So timing of those discussions just hasn't been right. But at some point, I'm sure it will come up again, and it's worth at least talking about.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's
and
fair.
if we can save some money somehow for our local taxpayers, it's worth looking at. But where that goes, I don't know at this point. And timing, once things settle in and they're ready to talk to us again, there might be a couple things that could come up.
Everyone's got to settle this year's budget first.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a difficult one. So and for now, our library is safe. Their cap is not included in the, their budget isn't included in the cap.
Which is such an interesting conversation there of money versus services. One thing, going back to the Ward County Commission building, you said that the fourth floor was used for the Health and Human Services?
Correct.
So when the building was built, there was a reason for that floor, right?
Yes, and it was fully finished, and there's offices and space in there, and it was fully staffed.
Yeah.
And before COVID, and now the state pays for that part of the program for that program. They pay the salaries of all the people that are up there. They pay for all of it. So, but the staff downsized and never expanded back out again. So
that's it. There was a question that was, taxpayers shouldn't lose their homes while the city and county sit on property that it doesn't need either. Do we need a huge building that has a whole floor vacant? So that kind of breaks down what actually is going on with the fourth floor. When the building was built, it was needed.
Correct. It was. I mean, I don't know if it all expanded into it away or over time, but they anticipated using it, and
that's the difficult part. Is there's these conversations that happen, and it's like, I think first off, taxpayers feel like, I'm giving you my money, treat it really well, and give me back the stuff that you don't need. And I fully get that. There's also, when the city was building their city hall, for better or for worse, it's the conversation of expansion. Like, we don't want to have to do this every 5 years. Theoretically, maybe 10 years would be the better number, but theoretically, we're going to expand over time, right? If eventually a city will, or in the county will hit a level, they're just not going to expand.
Population will go up over time.
Yeah,
that
generally
has
speaking,
been happening since the beginning of the city, and it will keep going.
Right,
most likely.
Right. If we're healthy, it's going to continue to happen. So you want to be able to expand, but you don't want to be something where you have half a building sitting empty. That'd be a little bit
and
too
with
much.
That building, okay, you lease it out, and over time, if the city does start growing again, and you do need to expand a service, then you have an opportunity to do that. You already own it; it's already finished. It's sitting there, and the lease ends, and you move back into it again.
Right.
But
absolutely.
And that building was, that was voted on. I mean, that was an initiated measure that was voted on and approved for the extra sales tax to build, to renovate that, to build the admin building, to renovate the jail. So,
right.
I mean, citizens did vote to have that.
Exactly. It was voted on by the people. So
actually, twice. They voted on it once, and then they voted on it again to extend the sales tax so they could pay for the rest of it.
Gotcha.
Correct. So.
So the end point that I want to make with that is, the frustrating part about this conversation is, I feel like, and city officials will probably feel differently, but I feel like this city of Minot, the conversations had about their budget and the Ward County should be two separate conversations. You cannot, as a citizen, look at the taxing authority on your property tax bill, realize there's several different taxing authorities on there, and each one handles their budget very differently. You have the school board, for better or for worse, who maxes out their mills, and that's been a struggle that they're at right now. They're digging into their deficit or their reserves every year, differently than the city, who last year used the extra money that they collected in that calendar year and gave it back to the people. Said, we didn't end up using this money, so we're going to give it back. They didn't dip into their reserves that they had sitting there for a rainy day and say, hey, we're going to use that money just to make it look better. They used the money that was collected but not used and gave that back to the people. That's a different way of using reserves, not the same way that the school board is using their reserves right now. And then you have the Minot Parks, who they have a completely different budget, and they handle it completely different than the other two. And you have the Ward County Commission. Make sure that you look at the budgets and you attack or you question the right authority.
And you can pull up the little pie chart on your tax statement online, and you can see the different entities and what percentage, of your total tax bill is from each entity. And please do that.
Yeah, do it. It makes you way more informed on this topic, because it is good for there to be able to be expansion in this Ward County. You guys be able to lease out the fourth floor And then down the road, if you need it again, you're able to go and be able to populate that with employees. It is good for you guys to be able to get a building at, if it market value might be closer to 10 million or thereabouts, whatever that might be, get it for under 2 million. Like, that is a good deal. And if it's a need for the county and how you guys be able to sell, like, those are good things. And we shouldn't be like, hey, no, that's my money, I don't think you guys need it, whatever.
And I don't disagree maybe with the comment of people losing their homes either. I don't
That
like
part
that.
is
I
sad.
personally do not like that.
Right.
I don't think that should be possible either.
Right. No.
There has to be some way, because they're 99% of people do everything properly and do their best.
Yep.
And there's always someone out there that will try and cheat the system or do something wrong on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's okay, but
It's a part of life at a point,
some of these things were put in place because of things like that. Somebody screws up and everybody gets punished. I'm not a fan of that, but that happens in our life. So I don't like it either if people can lose their homes because of taxes. I just don't like that. There must be some other way, but that's how things are dealt with right now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Ward County ends up owning, even if it's a city property, if
goes
it
to the
goes
county.
back on
That's
taxes,
one of the weird parts
we
right
end
there.
up owning it.
Yep.
So, and I don't like that
Yeah.
part of my job. I really don't.
That's fair.
That is a very weird deal that we discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this stage now, we're in the first real effects of the 3% cap. Where do you think it goes from here? Do you think it stays like this in the next legislative session, or do you think they make some adjustments
They'll
to
make
it?
some adjustments. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Things have come up in discussion with legislators that they know, we missed this or we did, and that's part of, there's so many details to the tax law, and you don't know what the effects are going to be necessarily when you do something like that. So I would anticipate something will get changed.
Yeah.
So this year, next year, we'll have it this way.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from now, good chance there's going to be some slight changes
so
to it.
three
we
budgets
need to
from now.
survive through these, these next two budget cycles, and then see what happens at the legislature. If they make adjustments to make it easier for us to be conservative and still do our budget, or if
Right.
we're just stuck with doing it this way, then we'll do it. Whatever happens. We're elected to deal with it, and
Exactly.
we will do it.
Do you-
But there's a lot of tough decisions that'll have to be made.
Do you think it's worth cutting something in the budget in the next, like cutting a service completely out, such as the one that you've already mentioned, in this budget or next year's budget? Do you think it's worth it with the perhaps slim hope that the cap is maybe increased a little bit to just slightly higher at that legislative session?
Well, or in this situation, it's a regional scenario, and maybe the state has a role in helping to provide funding for a regional, juvenile detention center. Maybe
Okay.
the counties can't afford to run these, period, and the state
Right.
needs to have one that gets run.
State needs to pick up the...
Or we just need to find a better way to fund it. The facility would still be there. We wouldn't, if we were to close it down, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not like the building disappears with it.
And we are under pressure constantly with regulations. In this situation, we had a complaint from an inspection that and we're appealing their result, but if we are forced to comply with the regulation, they think that we need to hire 3 more employees in that facility to staff it properly, to keep an eye on everyone properly the way they think. And those things change all the time.
Yeah.
Well, there's another $250,000 we need to add to our budget. A permanent expense. When you add employees, that goes on forever, and the cost just goes higher.
Yep.
It's not like a renovation where you can pay it one time and you can walk away from it. That's an ongoing expense that gets more expensive over time.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
we can't sustain things like that. I mean, we're at the point where we can't afford to keep doing that.
Right, for sure.
There's only so far that you can keep pushing out and expanding the staff at that point.
Correct.
Yeah. And not saying, again, like you mentioned, you don't want to cut staff if you don't have to, but that is a lot of times the easiest way to have those long-term costs reduced.
And that's about the only way that
Unfortunately,
the long-term cost ever goes down. So,
But-
which is, that's just reality.
The thing with that, and because I agree with what you're saying, I'm not saying this from a point of contention, but it doesn't take the burden off the people necessarily. that's still a budget that's being messed with. You have a state budget, and if you want to get mad at a budget as a person, I understand that as a citizen, like we feel the property tax budget the most, but I mean it's a $20 billion. It's something insane like that state budget that we have right now.
Yeah,
like a completely insanely high state budget. And what they done is put this 3% cap on the local municipalities. Maybe they have to go and assume services such as a regional juvenile detention center. So their budget's going to blow.
Yeah.
Well,
because they don't have a cap, and they just keep increasing it however high that they want. And when you have conversations about that, they're like, yeah, but we'd have to cut services if we didn't. And it's like, so you think that the local municipalities don't have to cut services with a cap? It affects, it's not
so
where...
it's okay for the local cities and municipalities
this is
to
where
cut
we'll
the
get riled up.
service.
This is where we'll get riled up.
I know. And
To cut
it's,
services,
which
but not to
entity is
scale.
in control of what?
Yeah.
Anything that the counties do affects every citizen that lives in
Yeah.
the county
Right.
some way or another. Same with the state. It's no different. It's just the state does this stuff and the county does this, but either way, you're still affecting everyone.
Yeah, and Commissioner...
Local control
well,
is
I
the
was just
thing
going to go there.
that we've
Commissioner
talked about so
Commissioner
long.
Feldall said people were worried about Measure 4 taking away local control. It feels like this did it worse. And I would have to agree because now the reason why is simply this. Measure 4, the benefit of Measure 4 was this. Everybody no longer had property tax. So the state had to provide that, and there's a chance that the state would attach a string to it. And if it did, there would be a measure of local control that was lost. But the local municipalities could still go and find other ways to generate revenue and maybe even charge citizens for things, which, in my perspective, citizens would be somewhat fine with because they're like, I use the service, I paid a fee, that's fine. I don't have property taxes that should be covering this as well. All right, this said, we'll give you a discount on property taxes. We'll give you a cap so you can't do anything. And now you're going to have to go to the state, hey, we need the service. We can't afford it anymore. We need you guys to provide it. We won't provide it. Okay, it's cut. Like you completely lost the control. You can't go. You have to be very careful about an alternative revenue that you tried to create that would charge a citizen for anything simply because they're still being taxed, some through the roof. So it's a very... very interesting discussion.
The $1,600 credit helps, but
it helps.
It's not the end all be all.
And maybe over the next 10 years, I doubt it. Now
Well,
I know we're getting into opinion right now. We're
yeah.
getting off topic, but I doubt that it gets zeroed out over the next 10 years. But that's the hope.
Well, how often when things happen in government, when you plan things out for a decade, it actually gets done in that time frame?
Yeah, for sure. There's going to be different
Things
governors.
change,
Yeah,
and everything
things happen.
changes over time.
Yeah.
So, but nobody said this job would be easy.
That's right. And so here we are.
We are ready to make our difficult decisions. All
love your
of the
optimism.
commissioners take it very seriously.
That's
That's
good.
good.
Marissa said combining the libraries would be awesome if it could save some services to the public. Minot Library talked about cutting digital services such as Hoopla and Libby from the 2026 budget. Agreed. That I think that's something that has been talked about before. I think it's something that should come around. I think timing might be a little bit more in line right now.
More appropriate this winter now. Yeah.
And so,
Agree.
Yeah, I think that would be a wonderful thing if it could be combined, because both budgets are struggling to find stuff for room for things like that. But appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
When do you guys plan to have an approved budget?
We'll have our budget hearing towards the end of September.
Okay.
Don't quote me on the date because
Right.
it's
You're good.
Yeah, the third week in September.
Okay.
I think it's at our regular commission meeting, and then the first week in October we'll have a final approval.
So
Perfect.
16th maybe. That would be the third Tuesday is the 16th.
That doesn't sound right.
Now I'm throwing an information. People will just assume that's what's normal.
Somewhere in mid to late September, you'll get the budget approved, and then October,
And I
you'll get the.
apologize
But
for
the
that.
thing
you're
that's
good.
important is there is a public hearing. So if you live in the Ward County area and you
Yes.
have some opinions on this, please show up and just
And we have a
state them.
commission meeting on Tuesday next week. I'm sure the budget will come up again. So
9 a.m.
tune in on our, you can watch live stream or you can come to our meetings. So, but we'll have budget discussions every time we meet until we get it approved. So
How about where are the meetings located for anyone that doesn't know at home?
in the Ward County admin building.
Perfect.
So on the second floor.
There we go. Any final words of wisdom, final thoughts for us before we let you go?
Pray for us to do a good job. We're gonna do our best, but it is difficult, and that I'm sure was the intention, and it's having the intended, that intention is being met. We're having some really good discussions and making some difficult decisions. So
Yeah, For sure. All right. Well, this has been a good episode. Appreciate everyone
Yes.
for tuning in today.
We had the slight delay getting started, but lo and behold, we're ready to roll.
There's one thing that we had in our title that we did not discuss.
You're
Close it out, Kyler.
Right. Oh, I guess I did release the article on it last night. It's official. Charles Hoefer has presented his lawsuit towards some current and former officials of the ND Commerce Department. He's seeking over $1 billion in damages. He is accusing them of, just to be short, it's a multi-year deception, concealment, retaliation scheme against him, and it's finally progressed. And you can see alternative coverage from someone other than us in the Minot Daily News this morning.
Because this is legit.
Yes, this is something. It is filed in federal court. This is something that is officially official now. It's no longer just conjecture, allegations with evidence being proposed and shown on our podcast. This is something that is now filed in federal court. So you can be sure to check out the Minot Daily News. The legend himself, Charles Crane, dropped a very good article on it, and I encourage anyone to check it out. And of course, check out our website, mydakota.com. You can see our full podcast series with Mr. Hoefer, where he has talked about his entire situation in Dunseith from the start to the finish. We have an evidence dump on our website that he's given to us as well. And it's almost 6 months in the making to finally see this come to fruition.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, definitely go to mydakota.com, check it out, and I'm sure we'll have more discussions on this in the near future.
Without a doubt. I look forward to it.
Perfect. Thanks for watching this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe. Tune in next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, for another great discussion, 9 a.m.